ASA. Game on Daily.
Welcome to the world of Q&A, sir. The last Q&A, sir, of the week, at least. Definitely of this week. How are we all doing this evening? Are we all feeling emotional? Oh, I hadn't actually listened to the music before going live. You were going to cry. There's always plenty of opportunities to cry. Welcome everybody that's already here. Yeah, the background, I'm afraid, Painful Discourse, you were very quick on it, but Tony did guess the background on Tuesday, or whenever I kind of gave away exactly what the background was going to be. The OST is trickier though. I wouldn't get this. Obviously I would get this because I selected it and I know the answer, but yes, I'm on top chat. Thank you, Isla, for getting those points. There are only the OST points available for the rest of the day. Baz is here. Tony, of course, is here. Peter, Isla, of course, is here. Luap Nitsua, everybody, Painful Discourse. Thank you everyone for coming along and chatting with me again. We're going to go straight in today. We'll do the little bit of housekeeping in case anybody new does show up. So you can talk to me by leaving these comments and we go back and forth. We talk about games and have a really nice time. Replicant, welcome. I thought you didn't want to talk about all of the emotional feel stuff today, but we're going to need to go into it a little bit. Stick messages in there, we respond, we have a chat. You can talk to me, you can talk to each other, and everybody's having a nice time. You've also got the option to leave formal comments, questions, things like that. Stuff that's like important to you that you want to make sure gets read and addressed. You can leave that in the Q&A box whenever it appears at some point during the episode. And if you really want to become internet famous, this is not the place for you. But if you want to come and speak to this little community that's right here, you can jump onto the Game on Daily Discord, stick yourself in one of the Q&As or waiting rooms, and you can have a couple of minutes to speak to the world as well. Do the face thing with the sponsor. Oh, Painful Discourse, I don't want to. I was going to skip the sponsorship today because I haven't looked at the website today. Because I have been way too busy. Nonetheless, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor is, of course... Does this still work? We don't have a sponsor. The box is empty. Why is the box empty? Because I changed graphics card this week and OBS no longer recognizes which monitor is which. So, do I fix that? I'm gonna slowly, can I talk and fix at the same time? This is a little bit complicated, the way that I've got this all set up. I'm gonna need to go into studio mode just to have any hope of fixing this. You might see some weird shit, or you might not. So while I'm having a look at fixing that, why don't you please tell me what you've been playing this week? Discord looks like it's going to work. That's nice. Game capture will work. Oh, I could do that. I'll be cheating. Let's see. So what you've been playing? Obviously, there are certain things I've been playing on stream that we already know about, but I would love to know what you are up to. This looks correct. Okay. Did that save? Can I exit studio mode? Let's see what happens now. Yay, studio mode for the win. Here's our sponsor. They're back. Game On Daily is once again the sponsor of the show. The website still exists. Use it. Find your favorite gaming content creators and talk to each other and have fun on there. Whoa, Xbox games have a showcase, and the last case of Benedict Fox gets a 7 from Analog Stick Gaming, and Ravenlock has a review from Console Creatures. They're a nice little website that don't score, but there we go. Lots of games. I did the face thing. Painful Discourse, you had the face thing right at the start of the sponsorship speech before it all went wrong. I did. In fact, I would hazard to say I actually did the best face thing so far. Like, my face responded to the signals that I was sending it and actually moved in tandem with my hand. So you can give me your sad, it looks like a sad Pac-Man ghost from here, but I actually think that was your best face so far. If you are signing up to the Game On Daily website right at this moment in time, don't try and sign up with Twitter. Elon Musk says no. So sign up with an email address or like traditional means, but might have a look at Ravenlock. You're not too sure. So Peter, the reviews that I've seen come through for Ravenlock say it's about as good as Redfall. So, which, as we've been talking about games and reviews and all the rest of it, isn't necessarily me trying to put you off. Give it a go. I've not played it myself. I've got no feedback about it. Only thing I will say, let's bring up a trailer for Ravenlock while we're here. Only thing I will say that I've noticed on that one, or not noticed on that one, is it's described as it's described as being a voxel game, but usually like the signature trait of voxels is that you can deform the environments and explode stuff and move things around. That's like the advantage of voxels over a traditional like triangular polygon kind of setup. This one has voxels for the sake of the art style, but I've not actually seen any like terrain deforming or anything that screams voxels at my face. Ravenlock release date trailer. Let's have a little look at this. Did anybody play their other game, Echo Generation? Do we have any Echo Generation fans in here? This is from the same studio, but I don't think it's a remotely similar game. I'm pretty sure Echo Generation was turn-based, kind of in the same vein as Legend of Dragoon, in that it was turn-based, but it demanded that you press certain button prompts and timings and things to add that little bit of spice to people that don't enjoy turn-based games. Make sure that you're paying attention and all the rest of it. Replicant, you put 5 hours into Redfall. Why? You know, Redfall, I do want everyone to talk about Redfall as they're playing it, but it's one that I will park as a bigger topic because it's had a lot of conversation around it, and I'd very much like to know what you all think if you've been playing it for any length of time. And there's some stuff we can talk about around that. Isla, you got ice cream in your tooth and it, ow. But you literally just went to the dentist like a week ago. Go and get a refund for poor dentistry. Painful Discourse, you finished Benedict, which you already know that you played. And you played Redfall with some YouTube celebrity and Tony the Wolf. Like, before or after you played it with me and Tony? What YouTube celebrity have you two been flirting with? Alright, let's play Minecraft. Like, what kind of Minecraft, Isla? Is this still your vault hunting mod? Or are you back to base Minecraft doing base things? Still vault hunting, but building a big island. I know everything. Peter Morland, you've only just started Benedict. What's your first impression of that particular game? I can't remember the full title. Benedict Cumberbatch, but not. It's the other kind of Benedict. And have they? I heard that they patched it and maybe fixed some of the performance issues, so you might be getting a nice smooth experience. I also saw several people had like crashes and save file issues beforehand, so hopefully that will not plague you. You just saw that cherry blossoms are in Bedrock, maybe? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I believe it. Painful Discourse. Benedict had a patch and now it's running pretty good. How good though? Could I blow everyone away by playing it on my fancy PC graphics card? Because they'd be like, wow, I've never seen this game running at 60 frames per second or something like that. You're going to stick with it for a while. Like all the games, you start off confused by them. But Peter, That's because you're very inexperienced. You're new to the gaming scene. You've not played many, so it's like your first time holding a controller, you need to figure out the buttons and stuff. No, why are you confused, Peter? You played all the games. You must know how they all work by now. Unless Benedict is like completely revolutionary and you jump by, I don't even know what, like how you could have a confusing function on the controller to jump. I believe in you. You could do it. What else have we got? Give me more games. I'm going to bring up that Benedict trailer. I'm in a trailery mood today because... Oh, no, I'm not going to bring it up because I can't remember what it's called. Benedict Fox. Benedict Cumberbatch trailer. Benedict Fox trailer. Benedict Cumberbatch trailer actually appeared in my Google search ahead of Benedict Fox trailer. Like, I don't know, people think that real people have trailers for themselves. I find that strange. Like, yeah, maybe Peter. I've got enough of a name to bring it up. Stylish since its reveal. I understand very much why people looked at this game and said, I'm looking forward to that one. I really want to play it. But I also looked at it and went, oh, the movement sure is slow, and Cumberbatch, that's like cumbersome, but more Benedicty. Terrible. I would call it wordplay, but it was not worthy of it. Terrible word butchery. And I apologize. Star Wars Day, May the 4th be with you. I have a Star Wars thing. I'm not a big Star Wars person, but I have a single Star Wars t-shirt, and I figured, hey, May the 4th. And also it was the only t-shirt that I could find. I've had a very busy day trying to prepare this show. Like, in the limited hours that I had. I put far too much effort into this. There's no reward. So that's not true. Like, there is reward, because going on here and talking to you all is the enjoyable part, and I'm not sure that the backgrounds and music add very much to it. But, you know, hours and hours and hours to put a different background in every week, and I don't know why I do it. I don't know. Welcome, Space Denizen, my VR friend. So, that's a good point, VR. So I was going to talk about games that I've been playing as well. You've all not given me enough games that you've been playing. And I've streamed most of my game activity this week. So you've all seen that I've been playing Switchback in VR. The horror roller coaster. It's not really horror. It's very much a virtual reality House of the Dead experience. Although there's probably like 100 different games that would describe themselves as a House of the Dead experience. Switchback has a bit more polish than a lot of them, takes you through a bit more like interesting locales, and gives you absolutely no control over your character really. So it very much fits as being a House of the Dead coaster, based on the Dark Pictures anthology, of which I have played 0 Dark Pictures game. So that means nothing to me, but it's still quite entertaining. Every now and again quite jumpy. Every now and again the jump scares completely flop, or the game keeps you sitting still for too long and gets confusing. And once upon a time, the puzzles were too difficult for me. I got set on fire and got really angry. Welcome Tom, welcome Chronic. Got to play them, Chronic. See, you were there when I mentioned this during that live stream. I have had them on my list to play. I used to do every Friday sequenced horror streams. Like, Shared Skitless was the name of the series, and it was a good name for a horror series. And I got through the entirety of The Evil Within 1 and the entirety of The Evil Within 2 that were very good games. I think I did Resident Evil 2 Remake and 3 Remake, and both campaigns I did Leon and Claire. All of those were on the Shared Skitless series. And then it went away. I guess, I don't know if Fridays is like suitable anymore, or when I can and can't stream. There's too many projects, too many things to do, too many things to play. Which is the other reason I question whether I should be doing Q&A as a Thursday show, or whether I should be tacking it onto streams and just like reformatting those a little bit. That's a question for all of you actually. Do you think that these Thursday shows, where we get like 2 hours to go over the week's topic, are they the way to go? Or should I be trying to like integrate these more into the normal regular stream days? I don't know the answer. But we are getting on for, this is the 44th Q&A, sir. Almost a year's worth of Q&A, sir. My light's gone. Oh, fucking PlayStation's fault. Do you know what? I had a power cut today. Wait there. I can turn the PlayStation on for some reason. Yeah, so I had just a scheduled one of the reasons that time was a bit limited today. Scheduled power cut at about 5:30, 6 o'clock. The thing with power cuts and the PlayStation 5 is that if your power cuts, then the USB ports won't charge anymore. They just say, oh, PlayStation's off now, I'm not charging shit for you. So my light just turned off. Now my steering wheel's going mad behind me because I turned the PlayStation on. Anyway, mix it up and you'll watch regardless. That's nice of you. Peter likes the regular Thursday show. I like the regular Thursday show too. Maybe I should just start recycling some of the 44-ish backgrounds and things and save myself a little bit of time, because it's the conversation that we're here for, right? Not the Cyberpunk background and redacted OST that's playing right now. Topic-wise, Benedict is a bit on the heavy side considering the art style. The dialogue isn't bad itself, but the voiceovers are pretty cheap fitting. I'd heard that the voiceovers were questionable at times. And art style, I mean, like it looks good, but I was surprised that it's not performing brilliantly. Beta Cypher, yo to you too. Cheeky Acer the blogger, you see, run from Saturday until Tuesday. Hang about. You see, run from Saturday until Tuesday. What does that mean, Lurpnitsua? You have to explain yourself. I don't understand. Isla is yelling that she likes Thursday how it is. Cool. How's it going? Haven't seen the you haven't seen the Phil Spencer interview yet. I will sum it all up for you. Hold on. Guys, a little something like to just squirt some fake tears in. That's my impression of the Phil Spencer interview. It's a little bit mopey. Candid, a lot of people will say, and we'll talk about it a fair amount more a little later on, but he was not in a positive space in his own words. It's a bit tough to watch. He looked a bit broken. He did look a bit broken. He did sound a bit broken. We'll go into specifics in a little bit though. The Phil Spencer interview, it is worth watching. Debatable how much good info actually came out of it, but we'll get to that. Tell you about it for sure. Should get solar with a battery. No more power cuts. As Crypt Keeper, I would need to move to a planet with many more suns to power all of the equipment that I've got in this room. Like, I am responsible for climate change. And I'm sorry for that. Right, you're yelling. So, have we had any more games thrown into chat? Have we had any more? Peter Mornergy felt sorry for the lad, but at least he had the guts to do the show. Yes, he did. Hasn't he been missed as well? Like, so much of the positivity around the Xbox at the launch of the Series consoles, and like it's a long way back and people forget, but there was massive consumer positivity around those consoles, and so much of it was like carried on his shoulders from the PR that he did with his regular interviews and appearances before all of the ABK stuff happened and he disappeared for like a year or whatever. Well, there we go, Replicant. Yes. Let's not blame Blizzard, because I quite like Blizzard still. Let's just blame the Activision and King parts. But yeah, ABK, we'll blame them. Namek, why are you yelling Namek at me? Don't have time to care. Oh, Namek has 3 sons. Okay, sorry, I'm forgetting my own thing that I said. Yes, I will possibly go there with my equipment, but does it have good internet connection? So that would make things difficult if I couldn't, like if I went all of that way to power my equipment and then couldn't stream, because we're all back in time. It's a matter of perspective. That's bluegrass. Sometimes. Either are you saying Spyro because you've been playing it, or because you like Activision? Because I want more games to be spoken about. Let's move on to Redfall though. So we'll keep the topics like jogging along, because Redfall is obviously ties in with the Phil Spencer thing, but I don't want to talk about the Phil Spencer thing in the same breath. So we'll talk about Redfall specifically. Redfall as a game. How are you finding it? Who has been playing it? Who's been playing it with me? Who's been playing it without me? Give me your hours put into it and current impressions, because I think a lot of people have played it. Joys of a Game Pass release. There's no reason not to, right? It's there. It obviously got a negative reception that feels described as double digits lower than the review scores they expected for it based on their internal test. Basically, Phil Spencer said that they invited a load of people like Colt over to play the game. No, Luap, I'm not ignoring your answer. I'll get to it in a second. He said, we invited Colt Eastwood over to play the game, and based on reception from him, we thought it was going to score a 98, and we're very surprised when it didn't. Luap, what have you said? What have I missed? You said the blogger thing that I didn't understand. Did you clarify it after that? No, what? No, I didn't. No. So, as I said at the start, very conversational show. Please do put things into the chat and I will answer almost everything and you can talk to each other. But if I do miss it, don't get pissy. Just say it again. Narrow-minded until you see the bigger pit. Wait a minute. Very confusing. No, sorry. I have not missed those on purpose, but please just keep talking. Just repeat yourself if I miss it. It's all good. Chronic, if it wasn't for the bugs, AI and poor visuals on console, it could have pulled another 10 to 14 points, you think? So have you been playing it, Chronic? Give me like your personal feedback rather than... Oh, Isla, you're yelling too much. It's very difficult. We can talk about Spyro. Oh, fuck. Try yelling. Oh, well, there's the evidence. Yelling absolutely works. Good science. Good science. Please don't everybody yell or the effects get totally mitigated and made redundant. Right? You can't all yell. Seems a mess on console. Yes, I've not touched it on console, but what I would say about the console version and the decision to launch it at 30 frames per second, I was surprised at how fast Redfall is to play. I've got my my field of view cranked up a little, like a little chunk above the default, which always makes things seem faster than they are. But Redfall is like, when you're sprinting, it's slick like Doom. I'm not saying it feels like Doom to play, but the pace that scenery is moving is not suited for 30 frames per second. It's really not. Even last gen on the Xbox One, they would have strived to get a game that plays at that pace up to 60. So I can totally understand people on console not enjoying the experience, and it is something everyone like perceives it differently. Some people are really good at processing stoppy motion and seeing it smoothly, and if they've got a brain that can do that, good for them. I would say they've got a big advantage. But so I've only played it for like a couple of hours on stream, and like an hour of that was just faffing about trying to get the co-op to work. You didn't miss. Long story short, you enjoy my chat and you like this channel. Thank you. Thank you, Luap. I'm saying this wrong, I'm sure. I'm going to go with Taja P. What's my overall takeaway from Phil's interview today? That he's very sad and still deserves like some respect and affection from the Xbox community. I still consider him a bulwark that keeps Xbox on the side of good against the tide of Microsoft. But we will, like, the Phil Spencer thing will be a topic in a little bit. The loot is boring. Replicant, I've not got into it far enough to get into like really assess whether the loot is good or bad. So in the hour or two that I've played, we had a fair amount of trouble trying to get the cross-platform co-op to work in terms of people being able to join each other. But it was fairly evident that even when it's working, the co-op in that game, like, it's a counterintuitive structure. People called it before it came out, like the way that progression is only held for the host and not for everybody else joining in is maybe fine, but the game is not structured for that whatsoever. So it just feels like it feels unfair to be joining somebody else's game, and frustrating because you do these missions that aren't that interesting and you know that you're going to have to do them again on your own game if you want to get anywhere through it. So the co-op structure is pretty bad for a game that has co-op as its like heart and soul. But if you saw my stream, you'll also know that I didn't like go into it full of disgust. It doesn't look ugly on the PC side of things, and gameplay mechanics aren't like offensive to me. But I have the advantage of not being like a big Xbox cheerleady whatever. To me, if a game like Redfall comes out and it's a bit disappointing. My team hasn't scored a massive own goal and thrown away this like tournament match that some people seem to think is the impact of it. So it's nice and easy for me to stay relaxed and say, yeah, I didn't even pay for this game. I got this game on Game Pass. It was all right. I had some fun playing with Tony and with Painful Discourse. I'm looking forward to playing it a bit more with some of you. Patrick, you've played almost 20 hours of Redfall and it's fun. So Patrick, you get to answer the question then. On does the AI's performance hinder it going on? Does the loot system open up and get fun? Do the character developments, like the skill trees and all that kind of crap, are they interesting? Are you gonna still play it after you've like burnt through the campaign, or what is your intention for the game? Like, that's what I want to know. Is it one that you see yourself playing for any kind of long term, or are you just blasting through it because you happen to have it and then you'll leave it and never look back? Peter Morning, just before the show, you booted it for a look on your PC. It was a fairly obvious difference in frames per second and graphics. Chronic, you're not holding Xbox or Phil responsible for mid-development acquisitions. You'll wait to reserve judgment on the first true next-gen releases. Agree. So they have had ZeniMax for a while. But we'll go... Like, Phil was asked some very specific questions around Redfall in that interview, so when we talk Phil, we'll go into that. Rocksteady, a single player experience. So this is what happens when you chase a trend. Arcane are a talented studio, but a single player experience, kind of the same as Suicide Squad. Yeah, and like, to their credit, in terms of chasing trends though, like it is a co-op game and that is a popular thing to do, but it's not monetized. They've not chased the sinister side of that trend, right? Like, there's no microtransactions and battle passes and all of that kind of crap, which is where, like, usually when you get like trend chasing, it's usually dictated by where the money comes in. So they chase the free-to-play model or the battle pass model or all of those things because of the monetization model, not because of the core of the game. Whereas Redfall, they made a game that they wanted to make and they didn't chase the sinister side of monetization, which is a thing that I like. Like, credit to them for that. But yeah, it didn't massively work out. Sage P, I think now that day and date AAA launches on Game Pass were a catch-22 for Xbox, were they not motivated to get it to top condition? Let's see if he's Redfall and Halo Infinite. I don't think that that's the scenario at the moment. So we do sometimes talk about like the sustainability and impact of Game Pass and how it's going to like really affect the kind of games that get released. I think at this point in time, Game Pass doesn't really have a negative impact on the kind of games that get released. I think it's not dominant enough to completely dictate the model, and Xbox aren't brave enough to. And I'm not saying this as a negative, but they'd have to be really bold to like piss in the face of traditional game development at this point in time and change the way that games are delivered to us. So I actually think, at least for the next few years, Game Pass is going to be a great model for delivering all kinds of games of all kinds of sizes and scopes. The question around it that is valid to me in terms of like long-term impact is, I just like said it in that, but long-term impact, I don't know what kind of games we'll be releasing into that service if it's massively successful and everyone is using it in like 10 years time. At that point, we can look at the state of the games going in there and really like assess whether it was evil or not. But for the time being, while it's good, I think it can support good games, bad games, and everything in between. Punty, YouTube chat glitch. Whenever you're in the middle of typing a long comment in the chat box and I post the Q&A thing at the top of the box, it erases your question while you're typing it. Punty, my apologies. Does that happen often? Like, that only gets posted once per show, right? Apologies to anyone that was mid-comment when that got put up there, but I can't do a lot about that, I'm afraid. The loot gets way better. The legendary guns are cool. You'd be okay with cooler effects on them though. So what kind of thing, Patrick, if you get a legendary gun in Redfall, what kind of thing can you expect it to do? Is it like 9% more damage to vampires if you shoot them in the left knee? Or is it like headshots make them explode, and headshots are contagious, so your own head will also explode, and like fun things like that. Maybe it's on a specific device. Could be. Might be something that I want to report to YouTube or Google. I'd love to, Punty, but YouTube and Google are not going to listen to Mr. 600 subscribers over here. I will get dramatic changes from top to bottom. It'll be just as effective as my asking Xbox to release virtual reality. Beta Cypher, how is it that a game like Redfall with money like Microsoft's behind it? It comes out the way that it did, but then a game like Dead Island 2 comes out after being cancelled multiple times and it's great. Maybe it's the difference between like a few years of development and 10 years of development. I don't know. It's very difficult to hold them up side by side, especially when Dead Island is such a fringe case in the first place. It's very unusual for a game to be announced like over 10 years ago and actually come out in a decent state. I will say, like, working against Microsoft very much is obviously Redfall is sold for $70, and this is all stuff that everyone is aware of and has been spoken about ad nauseum. But as a $70 game, nothing within it feels like they were ever gonna deliver a £70 game. $70, 70 monies, you know. And I've said loads and loads of times that I don't think development should work that way. I really don't think that setting a price point of 70 monies and then asking a studio to build a game up to justify that price point is a valid way to develop anyway. But it is the way that the industry currently works, and Microsoft have set a price of 70 monies for this game. And when I hit an old guy in the head, it makes the same sound as hitting a table. Like his head is made of wood. And when I shoot the fish, they just keep flapping around on the floor. Like, there's so many examples as you go through. You talk to an NPC and they've got this like their head tracks the position of the player as you'd expect, but it seems to update once every 4 seconds. So you walk around them and they'll be like, well, this is not a 70 monies game. It can be a good game. I'm not like saying that as a judgment on what it is or what it isn't, but I make the game first, then set the price, please. And I know that that's not relevant to a lot of people because most of us are just playing it on Game Pass. But they are still selling it. Flaps the same on both platforms. The fish, yes, the fish are the same everywhere. The sounds are the same everywhere. Like, there are certain things that just saying this is not finished in multiple ways. Replicant, you bet Nvidia are happy. Redfall was a marketing deal with the 4000 series cards, was being given away with a 4090, 4080 and 4070 Ti last month. And you know, Replicant, when you start the game, the splash screen says Nvidia RTX. So maybe you go, oh, have I got some fancy ray tracing to play with in this game? Like the art style demands ray tracing to me, the way that all the lights are baked in. Like, there's so much room for improvement with a bit of ray tracing there. It comes up in the splash screen and it's nowhere to be seen. In fact, you only get like 4 settings that you can tweak at all, and none of them are exciting. Right now, Nvidia are so full of themselves and cocky that rather than like in the days of old where you'd be like, oh, I'm buying a high-end graphics card, it's going to come with these like 2 or 3 new games. That's been the way in PC gaming for a long time. They get these big deals with decent publishers and you get some showcase games whenever you buy a graphics card. If you buy a high end, you get 2 or 3. Nvidia are like, our graphics cards now cost like 1,500, 1,600 monies, and you get an Overwatch 2 costume. Fuck off. How cocky are they? Overwatch 2 skins. Tony, you can have those if it lets me transfer them. I don't think it will though, but outrageous. Fortunately, I've already got the games that I want, so. Did that on your AMD card? Yes, it will always, so the splash screens when they have these partnerships will always do that, Peter. It's not specific to the card that you got in, but when the splash is specifically, so it's not just Nvidia, it's Nvidia RTX. And that normally comes up indicating that those features are included in the game. So you'd have to assume that it was the plan at one point. Maybe still is the plan, but when you're launching the game at 30 frames per second on the console, I can understand that the ray tracing effects were not prioritized. So it has DLSS 3. It does Replicant, but that's not an RTX feature. And I know that Nvidia do sometimes conflate those and like put them under that umbrella. but they shouldn't. You're assuming that the G is for gaming. What's the T for? Or what, in a GTX? Or in what? What G? G and Tita. Oh, gin and tonic. Gaming and tits. Go for it, Peter. You love the giant hands. Yeah, I also hope they never fix the giant hands. I'm all for a game having its own like distinct art style. Don't gasp at what Peter does in his spare time, Milo. Oh no, it's gin and tonic. Yeah. Maybe. So, Armored Core looked great. Let's have a little look at the Armored Core trailer, and I want you to tell me if you have ever played... Oh, why is my keyboard so far away? I want you to tell me if you've ever played one of the previous Armored Core games. And if you have, I want you to tell me everything about it. There's been like 14 of those games apparently, but this one's called Armored Core 6. Armored Core 6. Trailer. Sure, we'll do trailer. I want you to tell me the entire history of the series. What's good about it? What's bad about it? All of the lore of all of the possible... What's a Rubicon? We're close to the Rubicon. Is that bad? Do they want to get away from the Rubicon, or do they want to get to it? Is it a Souls-like game? Is it difficult? Because I have never played one of these, and I've heard bits and pieces about like really impressive levels of customization for the way that you play it and all the rest of it. It's a mech shooter. Now I know that it's like, I've seen the trailer and I've seen the mechs in it, but I want a little more. Does it even have a story? Is it a story like actually delivered through cinematics and things, or is it a From Software kind of story where if you, I don't know, pilot your mech suit to certain places and observe the environments, you'll pick up a deep lore and setting? Is it difficult? Does it have multiplayer? Is it fun? Are they good games? Are they usually well polished? Tell me more. It's not Souls-like, but it is difficult. Beta Cypher, you played one on your PlayStation 2. Also not Souls-like. Is it like Virtual On, or Virtual On even? That was fun for a little while. That was Arena Armored Core. A lot of mech customization and builds, mission-based. If it's a mech game, I expect to be able to shoot the buildings and have those buildings crush and crumble. Does it have any environmental damage? Like the old Mech Warrior games, they used to... There was one on, I can't even remember which Xbox console it was on, where you could level some buildings and things. That was fun. Pilots of Armored Core are generally mercenaries employed by corporations to do their dirty work. Generally speaking, the story behind each entry in the Armored Core series is mostly self-contained. Copy and paste from that wiki, Tony. You do that. And then get back to milking your chihuahuas or whatever it was you were doing. What's chihuahua cheese, Tony? What were you talking about? Is that a real thing? Who's eating chihuahua cheese? It's kind of, I thought... Beta Cypher, I read it's kind of like Zelda for a moment there, which I wasn't seeing in the trailer, but Zoids, I see. Mech games that I've played are some of the Mech Warrior games, and Virtual On is the only mech game that you've played to. Tom, that's a weird one. Like, that's a niche game most people won't have been anywhere near. You're a Sega friend, aren't you? It's real, Google it. I will not. Is it actually, Tony? Is it actually dog cheese? And you went somewhere in America that serves a breakfast comprised of dog cheese and jalapenos? I understand, like, why you were potentially insulted. Looks great, but will it be good? Have to be extra careful after Redfall. Armored Core, tying Armored Core to Redfall isn't very fair. But Elden Ring did launch with some performance problems of its own, so... Armored Core 6, only game worth pre-ordering. What do you get for the pre-order, Tony? Or are you saying this like it's worth pre-ordering because you're just that confident that it's going to be good? In which case I disagree with you. No game is worth pre-ordering for the sake of just having your order in early. I'm assuming it comes with something that you want, like a full-sized mech. Tell me, Tony. No, that's enough Chihuahua cheese. Tell me about what this game... Are you just confident? Just like Elden Ring? Like, if pre-orders were cheaper than day one releases, or... I don't like the practice of pre-orders including like a digital special hat or whatever. That's walking a very close line to microtransactions and cosmetics. But a pre-order has to do something to be worth pre-ordering. Punty... each to their own. Normal edition is 60 money. Yeah, Elden Ring was one of the best things that it did was not be 70 monies as well. So in the US it's 60 monies. That means over here it's probably 50. It's like that was the same for Elden Ring. The jump to 70 monies over there was not as harsh as it was over here. We've suffered a big jump in prices. So Elden Ring was 50 compared to most games being 70 for us. Yes, Tony, cheaper than all of the next gen games. From Software and Bandai Namco are the heroes of the hour for keeping prices reasonable. What if making pre-order bonuses sound as shit as they really are? Yeah. Yeah. Who plays World of Warcraft? Replicant, you said you play World of Warcraft. That's on offer at the moment. I'm still like so tempted, but I'm also being told to bring back shared skitless and play through loads of horror games, as well as do all the VR stuff, as well as do the ray tracing stuff, as well as everything else. So World of Warcraft is probably a terrible idea. It's £70, about $95. Once upon a time, Patrick. I think at the moment £70 is probably pretty close to $70. Like, our currency is not too strong these days. You hope that it sells well. Armored Core 6. If like popularity of trailer is any indication, then it's probably going to sell well. Off of the From Software name more so than off of the Armored Core name. Yes, Tony, time to play with you as well. First aid kit, exactly what everybody needs. Thank you for being here. Do I think Xbox will stop making consoles? No. No, I don't. Oh, not anytime soon, anyway. Consoles are clearly, from all of the things that have been said and all of the things that we already know, not a key focus or key part of their strategy, but they will always represent a fairly convenient on-ramp into the ecosystem for people that like them. So it would be a very strange decision for them to stop selling them entirely. That's my thoughts on that. Trailer looks brilliant. Yes, the Armored Core trailer. You paid 60 quid for Forspoken. Shoot you. I've got Forspoken. I haven't played it yet. The benchmark looked like okay in places and terrible in places. That's how far I've got with that game. I ran the benchmark once on my new graphics card. Speaking of the new graphics card, look how path traced my background is. Welcome, Wayne. Isn't it like... So you can be looking at this background and very reasonably assert that it looks like it looks like Cyberpunk. And that's fine, but also remarkable. Because path tracing, like if you're... I'm sure most people are at least vaguely familiar with ray tracing they hear, but path tracing is an unattainable future fantasy tech in most regards. We get ray tracing as has been sold in the console space, which is like barely scratching the surface and just getting the kind of scummy stuff on the edges. And you've got path tracing as it stands in cinema and animation, where it's like incredibly visually... what's the word? Like, it's believable, but there's a different word. When something like it's not real, but you can look at it and you would believe that it is. Ray tracing in cinema can achieve that because that's the level of sophistication in that technology. But ray tracing running in real time on console or PC hardware has been a pipe dream for a very, very long time. And the fact that they can now do it in a world this detailed, that's comparable to like detail wise comparable to a rasterized world, and do that in real time is fucking unbelievable. Like, cinema has good fidelity when it comes to ray tracing. Ashes to Ashes, cinema does have like often fantastic fidelity with ray tracing, but they can spend like 12 hours rendering a single frame, or probably more than that in some cases, to get that fidelity perfect. Whereas this in the background here can spend 16.7 milliseconds on a single bit of hardware to deliver that to my face. So, is it the word that you said that one time? Yes, Isla, you have definitely said this word before. And I had it for a while, but it's gone. NVIDIA need applauding for pushing ray tracing and path tracing and supporting the tech. Yeah, yes, that word. Ray tracing can deliver that. It is a verisimilitudinous kind of technology. Yeah. Ashes to Ashes, you love Cyberpunk, it's your guilty pleasure for sure. You don't care what anyone says. So, I mean, it launched rough, and when they got to their 1.5 update and re-released it on the PlayStation, like that point in time, it was a good game at that point in time. But the fact that they took it forwards and are now just like showing off what they can do tech-wise, the thing that blows my mind is like second best is Minecraft and Quake 2. Is the soundtrack Virtua Fighter? It's not Virtua Fighter. You want all strippers in big test tubes. Tom, they are not strippers. They maintain the exact same level of clothing throughout the show. No stripping occurring. OST is not Final Fight, Tony. Nice try, nice try. It's interesting that you get those vibes from it, though. Yeah, so I've been playing a bit of Cyberpunk and capturing it and just like gawking at how impressive it is from a technological standpoint. And I will say, like, if you're not a nerd like I am, if you're not going to gawk at understanding how this image is being composed, then its value diminishes massively, because it still looks like a game, really. But if you are a nerd like me, and you then you can really appreciate it and go, wow. Like, CD Projekt Red are, like, with NVIDIA, CD Projekt Red and NVIDIA are like 10 years ahead of the rest of the world, right? There's nothing close to that elsewhere for a massive nerd. If you drain the fluid, would that class as stripping? It would count as heroism for saving their life. I've been giddy since I got it. Tony, yeah, pretty much. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've also got, I'm repurposing previous hardware to make things even better in the way that I stream and stuff as well. So can't wait for the new Witcher game if the graphics are going to be like this. Isn't that a weird thing, JJ, though? CD Projekt Red can do this in the Red engine that they used for Cyberpunk. But they're not using that engine anymore. They're going to use Unreal Engine now. Tom, I don't know that it wouldn't kill them. Heroism is born of good intentions. If your intention was either to save their lives or just like, I don't know, anything other than kill, not anything other than kill them. It depends, actually. I can't really read what your intentions would be trying to get those out of those test tubes. You'd probably be either some kind of hero or very much a villain, though. So, opportunity. But they're not real, I'm afraid. Sci-fi Witcher, that will be odd. Try the Portal path tracing. I will try the Portal path tracing, but it's still, like, I've seen it trailerized a bit, and it's neat as well in its own right. But I like, they've taken a game that's many years old and was quite simplistic when it came out, and then applied like ray tracing wonderness to it. They also made all of that open source, or like let their Portal SDK out into the wild, so anything that was made on the source engine in that kind of era can be made all nice and ray traced by community modders now as well, quite easily. So that's a thing that I've seen trickling out into the open as well. Things like obviously the Half-Life games and stuff like that. Is this Streets of Rage? Sounds like that style. That would be along the same lines as Final Fight and that lot, wouldn't it? This is a Streets of Rage game, Ashes to Ashes. This is a Streets of Rage game. Makes it a guessing game now. There's not many numbers to choose from. In there straight away. It is Streets of Rage 4. And also the DLC that no one played. Good intentions don't make you a hero. We'll agree that maybe they aren't real though. Yes. Good intentions don't make me a hero. What have I been doing all this time then? Sod good intentions. I'm going to start murdering. All because Tom said that my good intentions were for nothing. Nothing. Painful Discourse have to say the last 3 or so albums have been awesome. Wait a minute. Last 3 or so albums from what? 80s and 90s Danger Mouse for sure. Zelda and Starfield and so. What's been awesome? What last 2 or 3 albums have been awesome, Peter? Tony, you were very close. Very, very close with Final Fight. That's why I said it's interesting that you picked up that vibe from it. Outcomes can count more. I think both things count, Tom. I very much agree that, like, for better or worse, actions have real consequences that shouldn't be ignored, but intentions are also a thing that counts for something. I can't scroll up, Peter, because I can't scroll up. So I did scroll up and I didn't see the answer. 80s and 90s Danger Mouse, I saw that. Peter Morland. It looked like I'm sat behind a synth. Keep expecting me to break into it. Oh, yeah, okay, I see. Danger Mouse, Apache mode. Yeah, no, I've seen it now. I'm not able to place names to music very easily. So I also probably said that entirely wrong. I've seen it written before. I don't know who that is or what they do, but I'm glad their last 2 or 3 albums were awesome. You're hungry? Hell, how am I supposed to help? I can instruct you to go and get yourself some food and promise you that I won't do the questions in the next however long it takes you to do food. Or I don't know about that. We might do them soon. Eat. Good advice. Have intention to eat, then actually eat. And everything will be right with the world. Good shout, Peter. I think you've done it. I think that was the helping hand that was needed. Right, let's talk about, very briefly still on Cyberpunk, we'll talk about DLSS 3. Which is part of the equation to get Cyberpunk looking like this. Did you know that Cyberpunk path traced in 4K on an RTX 4090 runs at something like, I can't remember the number, something like 13 frames per second or something like that. As stated earlier, it is massively demanding, and being able to achieve it in real time on a graphics card is like a pipe dream. And obviously pipe dreams are difficult to achieve, but DLSS, you've probably all vaguely heard that it's an AI upscaling frame construction technique that are all the rage in terms of whenever I say, like, people need to stop talking about resolution, because resolution is a metric that only tells a small part of a story. DLSS is one of the best examples of upscaling. Not perfect by any stretch, but one of the best examples. In this scene that you can see behind me, I'm using DLSS on its quality preset. What am I talking about? 3 is the interesting bit anyway. So 3 is a bit controversial because people that haven't used it read the description of the technology and see that essentially it's inserting fake frames into your game. Interpolation is what I hear a lot of people say about it, and they balk at it and say that's going to be horrible. They think of it like if you've got a TV and it's got motion smoothing and things like that, then you can set your TV to generate fake frames and smooth off the motion, and it feels horrible and looks weird when you play games and stuff, because you obviously can't input any control during those fake frames, so all of the extra processing just adds a load of delay, and it's just not a nice experience to play. People think that's what Nvidia are doing. I thought that I would probably run into problems with the technology. That, well, there you go, ashes to ashes. Motion smoothing is icky. But DLSS 3's frame generation, so effective as a piece of technology, because Cyberpunk, if you ever played the quality mode on a console versus the performance mode, as games go, it has one of the worst 30 frames per second modes around. It feels horrible and it looks horrible to play at 30 frames per second. But to play a fake 60 frames per second looks and feels like real 60 frames per second. Like, it blows my mind alongside all of the path tracing and tech goodness. I'm just looking at this and I'm seeing all the people that call Nvidia frauds and stuff like that for claiming these numbers, but it bloody works. Motion smoothing on Nintendo Switch is great. Nothing is great on the Nintendo Switch. So that was just a real brief. I don't want a big deep dive into DLSS 3 or anything like that, because I'm aware that that's not interesting to most people, but just if you see people doubting it as a technology, it has my seal of approval as a very effective, very impressive little trick that Nvidia have pioneered there. The reason why that you enjoy the GeForce Now 4080 tier is due to much of this. It feels very close to native due to all the Nvidia tech. Yeah. You bet the next gen Switch will have some form of DLSS. It's a funny thing that one of the sad parts of this console generation on the PlayStation and Xbox side is that they're both AMD consoles, and AMD are like, I like AMD as a company, but they're way behind Nvidia. Nintendo, like, they went with Nvidia for the Switch, they went with low-end Nvidia for the Switch, but they're free to partner with whoever they want. So they could talk to Nvidia and they can talk to Intel. They can do whatever they want. They could do impressive things if they wanted to. Obviously, Nvidia's technology, and the reason that Sony and Microsoft are so stuck with AMD is that AMD offer much better prices to them, because Nvidia know that their stuff is better, and they don't do things cheap for anyone. But Nintendo could work with that partnership and actually make a console that pisses all over everything. They won't, but they could. Spider-Man Remaster crashes a lot for you, Tony. Blame Sony. I've not played the Spider-Man Remaster on the PC yet. I may do. DLSS 3 is effective depending on the game. Yes, Tony, it does depend on what your base frame rate is and all the rest of it as well. I've only really played around with it on Cyberpunk, and I'm very, very briefly on Redfall. But on Cyberpunk, I'm so impressed with it. You want to see if I get issues. Luke Steele, DLSS 3 is really impressive. NVIDIA Reflex is also crucial to lower the input lag from enabling the frame generation. Both super cool tech. Yes. Wait. I just did not expect it to be as good as it is. Kratos, welcome as well. Luke as well. I don't think I've seen you in here before, so welcome to our little chat. Painful Discourse. Transparency. You don't subscribe to music streaming. Old school. You buy CDs. Peter, I'm glad that the music industry still supports you. I don't know. I'm surprised that CDs are still a thing. Tony, vinyls is different. We've had this discussion a few weeks ago. Vinyls is like, I don't know why it's so different, why people love to collect them, but there we go. You buy what you want and enjoy it. I do not. I stream music. My ears aren't good enough to care about the format particularly. You still collect vinyl as well. We had a surprising number of people around here that collect vinyl and like actually have old vinyl record players to listen to them as well. Tom, what about you though? You might have answered this last time, but do you just collect vinyl or do you play those records? Imagine when you're collecting them, it's a bit of a risk every time you want to listen to one, right? Got a collector's item, you don't want to scratch it. Your grandkids are buying vinyl. Secret DJs, maybe. Or maybe not secret at all if they're bragging about it on the YouTube. Jack collects some vinyls as well. You'd like to get a vinyl player to listen to because it looks cool to you. Yes. I'm not going to do the vinyl thing again though, because I know we covered it in too much depth last time. Read your other. I can't, it scrolled away. Your phone died on the way out of work, so you put a CD in the CD player to listen to while you drove home. I don't think I've got a CD player in car. In fact, if I had a CD and I really wanted to listen to it, can the Xbox Series consoles play CDs? What happens if you put a music CD in a current console? I could always crack out the Sega Saturn and listen to a CD. It used to have this little like spaceship CD player, media center screen with cubes that pulsated to the music. So if I had a CD now and I wanted to listen to CD music, I think I'd have to put it in the Sega Saturn and listen to it like that. Hold on, for science, Ashes to Ashes is going to risk his Xbox Series X by putting a CD in it. What happens if you put a vinyl into a console? Check my DMs on Twitter. I can't do that, Wayne. I'm live on the internet. Wait, I can do that, really. I have a message from Phil Spencer. He says, don't call me Mopey. What have you sent me, Wayne? That I'm not sharing that with the world. Wayne is taunting me. Wayne wants the world to know that he's got 150 out of 150 bonus boards smashed on Forza Horizon 5, and I have 6. 6 is a lot. 6 is more than I wanted to smash. Forza Horizon 5 does not support virtual reality, so I reluctantly smashed those 6 boards because I had to for work. Yes, Tony, the word will always come up. How long did that take you, Wayne? Are you done with Forza Horizon 5 now, or have you got more to go? Right, let's do Phil Spencer. Let's talk about Phil Spencer's interview today. Several of you have already said he seemed broken, he seemed down, he seemed I mean, he even said like maybe he's going to get fired soon, right? He was the wording in there was someone's either on their way out or knows that they're on like thin ice. But let's go over what was actually said, what he wants to talk about. You're sad that Assetto Corsa doesn't have bonus boards. That's definitely more simmy, right? Painful Discourse, how dare you? What are you clipping? Wayne, you got loads to do on it. Wayne, are you doing the Hot Wheels and the Rally DLC as well? He just said that maybe if he messes up enough more times, he'll be gone. He did, but that was... he also said that he's aware that people on Twitter and all the rest of it are calling for him to go. And he said that he understands that and he gets paid too much anyway. Like, it was a negative interview. So kind of funny Xcast held the interview. So Snowbike Mike, Paris and Gary Witter held the interview. And they did ask reasonable questions and got some answers and some negativity. It sounded like the interview was booked in while things were happier. And they went ahead with it anyway. So, oh, I see. Painful Discourse, I see. All Forza Horizon 5 done. Oh, was the screenshot that you sent me from Forza Horizon 3? Fair enough. Everything I said still applies to Forza Horizon 3. It'd be silly, but you'd have more chance to hit off-track boards than to win races. I've never actually played Assetto Corsa. Dodge, you're right on time. We're just about to talk about your favourite topic. The Phil Spencer interview. You need 3 hours notice next time. Gaz chanting your shit over and over again probably didn't help. Well, fair. Does that mean that... Chronic, he's making Xbox a lot of money with the decisions he's made, regardless of public impressions of him. Well, Chronic, there's a question that we don't know the answer to, is what his targets are within Microsoft and within Xbox. So everybody's like well aware that he had his conversation where he convinced Microsoft and Satya Nadella to go all in on Xbox rather than spin off the division. and nobody knows what he promised them. So nobody knows like if they're hitting the targets that they're supposed to be hitting. They're definitely making more revenue, but they're also spending a hell of a lot more money than they've ever spent as well. So who knows what's going on at Xbox, and who knows what's supposed to be going on. But like I was saying before, though, he carried all of the positivity around the brand on his shoulders for a long time, and there was so much positivity and so much strong momentum in Xbox's favor at the start of this generation before Phil had to retreat for whatever reason. You think he's going to go if ABK collapses? That would be a really harsh thing, because I don't think ABK is his fault or like a thing that he particularly like, he shouldn't shoulder that one. I don't think the decision was not entirely his, but more so I don't know. That would just be harsh, like to have that be the thing that breaks it. You think he may leave of his own volition? You think if ABK collapses, he might just walk away? He doesn't have the power to spend $69 billion. That's true, Pixelbitchy, but he definitely would have had influence in that decision-making process, right? He definitely isn't responsible for the deal not going through if it doesn't go through. And he definitely, like Microsoft, would have consulted all kinds of competition lawyers and analysts before attempting that acquisition. So if it gets blocked by regulators, I don't think that would be a good, wholesome reason for him to go. But like you say, the possibility that he looks genuinely frustrated today, so if he wanted to walk away, maybe that would make sense. I don't know. He's been there a while. It's not ABK talk, Replicant. It's Phil Spencer talk. The acquisition, it's hard to talk around it entirely, but forgive me. Yeah, Sati would have had to be on board in that, like in a big way, yes, and they would have taken a lot of advice on that one before attempting it. Kratos, you think that he's going to lose his pension if he walks away? I don't think walk away necessarily means like just stop turning up for work or whatever. He looked tired and frustrated. He did. So let's talk about the content of the interview, though, rather than just like how sad he looked or whatever, or speculate on where he's going. But the questions that he was answered, because he started off with quite an interesting, challenging one around Redfall, where it was Paris that asked him about how they determine whether they should delay a game or whether they should release a game. And the examples were quite specific. They were like Redfall and Halo Infinite, because Halo Infinite released with certain amounts of content missing, no co-op mode, no forge and things like that. And Redfall obviously released as a bit of a cluster without its frame rate and all the rest of it. And the answer that Phil Spencer gave wasn't really an answer. Like it was, he talked about being willing to delay games that need to do it, but there being a difference between delaying games for technical issues and games not achieving like their creative vision and all the rest of it. But did anyone pick up any kind of answer as to like the decision process or the line of thinking that they would have had to follow around Redfall and its 30 frames per second mode? Like, because I didn't. I think he gave an honest answer but didn't actually answer the question, and it left me wondering, so why did Redfall release at 30 frames per second? Like, he acknowledged that he knew about it well before it came out, and obviously a decision was made to push through that anyway. Ashes to Ashes has answered, the music CDs open up on Windows Media Player. Well, on the Xbox they open Windows Media Player, and you can play music on them. Isn't that exciting? Because stockholders want money. Isn't that the cause of all problems, Tony? This is where I say, like, Phil is a gaming executive that plays games and does understand it and does, like, I do think he's sincere when he says that he wants to deliver to Xbox players, and when he says, like, don't listen to my words, what you get in your hands, like with the controller in your hands, that's the bit that counts. All of that is true. I have said before, I don't trust Microsoft so much. I don't think Microsoft care for us in the slightest. So Phil Spencer kind of stands there keeping Xbox as Xbox and making decisions that are good for us by and large. So I don't want him to go and to step down, because there's so little to gain from somebody else stepping into that role, because we don't know who we'd get and how they'd lead that brand and where it would end up. So hopefully he'll score some wins and stick around for a while longer. But what else was he asked today? What else was he asked? He said some weird things that I disagreed with. But I want more from you before I go into what I disagree with. So, Painful Discourse, you think he said what needed to be said. The game just didn't work from a design perspective, not technical but gameplay, so they didn't have the incentive to delay. You think that's what he was trying to say? That if they thought that Redfall was a better game, then maybe they would have delayed it to make it as good as it could be. But they felt that it was shite anyway, so they just pushed it out the door, like in polite words. It's not what I took from it, but... Sean T, maybe the promotion has been a bad thing for Phil. He seems like a hands-on guy and probably too far from the end product. So one of the things that I would say, a lot of people are crediting him for taking the blame for everything today, because he took like responsibility for everything. This is my fault, this is my fault. It's not Arcane Austin's fault, it's my fault. It's not Bethesda's fault, it's my fault. The lack of these other games, that's my fault. The marketing messaging, the whole 12-month showcase, that's my fault. Everything is Phil Spencer's fault. And to a degree, that's just PR, right? He's coming out and he's saying what you need to say and shielding his teams from insults and blame. But at the same time, he had better be pointing his fingers internally. Like, he can't not point fingers at people that are not doing their jobs. He can't come out publicly and say, oh, you know what? If Matt Booty would get his head out of his ass, we would have had so many games. We'd be doing so well right now. I get that he can't come forwards and say that. But he was also like overly shielding. He could... No, I don't really know like what line he would have to walk to acknowledge where mistakes have been made and where they're trying to fix them. But saying that everything is his own fault, I don't think instills that much confidence that anything is getting fixed, if that makes sense. Hopefully he starts to crack the whip. Yeah, JJ, we just obviously he had a fairly negative demeanor, like in general, but I want to pick apart what he said and see what he's going to change and if it's going to get better. And I'm not one of these, I'm not like a doomsayer. I don't think things have been terrible for Xbox. Like, Phil was right. When Hi-Fi Rush came out just a few months ago, people were full of hope again. We had a boring year in 2022. We've had all the ABK stuff take all the fun out of Xbox. But it will take very little for the mood to swing completely and for people to be positive again, because the super fans are really fickle. If they do a good showcase in June and they release like 1 or 2 games that are actually good, then suddenly top of the world again. But Sean T, you think the Phil probably deals more with the budget and employees than with the games? Yeah. There were certain things that he talked specifically about Arcane Austin. They probably should have engaged with them earlier and got their tech team over to help out and got like the coalition over to help out, and they did all of these things but not soon enough. And it's like, that's probably true, but it's not his fault. He can't micromanage every project from every studio. He needs to employ people to do that, and he needs to kick them up the arse if they're not doing that. So, Painful Discourse, you hate the doom and gloom sale. There is too much negativity just because one game came out slightly off. Boomer Benz, Phil said something about 60 frames per second requiring attention last fall to meet launch. Yeah, he did, which implies that they have at least a timeline of when they should be able to deliver 60 frames per second and had to make a decision on whether it was okay to release that game or not. There's lots of things that you can read from the timelines and the bits and pieces that he did give us there. That's what you're saying. Yes, sure. No, I'm agreeing with you. And Kratos, Phil took over after Xbox One. He and his team are to blame this generation. I'm not. So it really depends who's talking at any given time. Generally, I don't subscribe to the idea that Phil is blameless and that Xbox are blameless under him. He's been in charge for like 9 years. That's like 2 presidential terms in the US, I think. And you can judge people on results within that time frame. Anyone saying that like, oh, it takes time to build, he's got to start from scratch and all the rest of it, like he's had time to change things. So everything that is happening at Xbox now is Phil and the current team's responsibility, and the results sit on their shoulders. Absolutely, I agree with you there. Just like, it's almost like oh, I wonder, does it make you think like Phil saying everything is my fault, please everybody put every bit of blame on me? Do you think he's like ready to scapegoat himself, so he's going to tell everyone that he's the villain and everything is his fault, and then he's going to leave with a nice payout so that someone can heroically come in with good intentions and say, yeah, we got rid of that Phil, he was a jackass, remember how he said that everything was his fault, now everything's good? There's an interesting little conspiracy theory. It's PR, so there's definitely an angle to it. He's definitely gone through a PR department before answering any of these questions, and it's hard to read like what he's angling on this one. Normally it's quite easy to read what they're angling on, but question is, who would replace him? Yeah, Replicant, we very briefly spoke last week, because like when I talk about a figurehead that is kind of hopefully trustworthy in terms of steering Xbox as a brand for nerdy gamers like us, like Sarah Bond is the obvious candidate. Is she the right candidate, and is she the candidate that's going to please Microsoft's shareholders? I don't know, maybe they should get Jim Ryan in. Can we have Jim Ryan for the bands? Yeah, it depends, like, because if you're Microsoft and you're trying to find a new head for the Xbox division, you might be tempted to find someone that has a lot of experience in mobile or something horrible and slimy like that. Like somebody who has a lot of experience in the areas where Xbox are not traditionally strong, where they're trying to grow. And that would be bad for all of us. So, Peter, in your experience, most software houses you left to totally manage themselves left you in a position where you had to firefight, delay, and cancel. Yeah, there's like, it's a difficult one because on the one hand, people like Microsoft in particular used to get battered by people for not giving their studios enough freedom and for making them make Halo over and over again and making them make like the same 3 games over and over again. People begged for Microsoft to give their studios creative freedom, and then they gave them too much creative freedom. And you're right, like you can have a studio like Double Fine where they're already running as like a well-oiled machine, and you'd hope that if you give them freedom, they've got that structure in place and they will still deliver. But then you give freedom to like Undead Labs and the like that don't have that structure in place, that haven't run at that scale before, and you think, hang on a bit, there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer in how hands-on Xbox management should be. Hands-off management does not exist. They're simply not managing. Yeah, you can't be completely hands-off, but you can have people that you trust. Berserker, this, where were you? You've played Redfall for 18 hours. You need to give us a quick review. We've already talked about Redfall and how much we all love it. You're 18 hours in, and I want you to tell me all about it. Are we roasting Redfall? There was no particular roasting here. Gentle appraisal of Redfall. And you can talk about its flaws, or you can talk about, like, it's probably more rare to talk about what you like about it, because there aren't many people that have played it for 18 hours. Patrick, Redfall could have been in fine shape, and attempting to implement 60 frames per second could have broken the game the next day. Maybe. Painful Discourse is shouting again. Either is telling people to join the Game on Daily Discord. Yeah, if anybody wants to jump in and actually talk to me and to everybody here, you are welcome to hit that waiting room and talk to us. Berserker this, Redfall, very flawed. Weird that a game touted as single player with multiplayer plays much better in multiplayer. Issues aside, there's fun to be had, but overall blind, empty, and needs a lot of tender loving care. So, wait a minute, Ashes to Ashes at 22 hours. Jordan's been gazumped. Huge looter shooter gunky. You gunky. Jordan, when you're playing co-op, are you the host or are you the gimp? Are you the host or the gimp? You playing on your own profile, or are you just wasting your time being subservient for another master? Baz, don't learn from their mistakes. I think a lot of Xbox fans have had enough of disappointment. Yeah, probably so. Acid Flare. Nobody is saying that every game must be great. You can, however, say that they should release complete and actually functional. Yeah. Berserker this, you're the GIMP. Are you going to play it all through again so that you can actually progress the story? Or are you just going to remember that time you were a GIMP for 18 hours and leave it at that? Ashes to Ashes, you played ahead of your group so that you can join them in their games. This is one of the things that I don't understand. And again, I did say it when we were on this topic earlier. Like, co-op is so fundamental to the game, but the game is not structured for co-op at all. Because we played very brief. I'm only like 2 hours into it, and half an hour of that was trying to get the co-op to work. But I played through the first like 1 or 2 missions, and then in order to join Tony, I had to replay the mission that I had just already played because that's where he was in the campaign. And it's like, for a co-op first game, this is sloppy and strange. And then I punched the dead guy and his head sounded like wood. So, yeah, there's some issues there. Gonna finish up the Friends safety space. Yeah, Sony's games released with bugs. Patrick, the Horizon Forbidden West released with a quite dodgy 60 frames per second mode that had some nasty visual characteristics that they fixed a little after launch. I think God of War was fairly polished when it came out. Returnal had a save bug. I think Demon Souls was nicely polished. I know not necessarily like first party at the time for Returnal and Demon Souls. Studios that they acquired afterwards or during. I don't think Ratchet and Clank was particularly buggy. I think in terms of polish, yeah, Days Gone was a bit of a wreck. And The Last of Us PC port doesn't count because that's a PC port. So yeah, they do, I would say, relative to the rest of the industry though, they're mostly on top of it ish, but then their games are of a very particular type, right? They're not trying to throw in much in the way of co-op. And if you look at like Ghost of Tsushima and Returnal, they added those features way after launch. So standards need to be set in terms of releasing games. For years now, Xbox clearly has had none. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been problems there. Hi-Fi Rush was quite good though, right? In terms of release polish. I didn't really encounter any bugs in that one. And I know, again, like, you bring the scope in, you reduce the amount of bugs that you're going to get. But Master Chief Collection, I mean, 343 is a whole story unto itself, right? That was a disaster, and then they still somehow managed to release Halo Infinite in the state that it was as well, so. Hi-Fi Rush was great, yeah. I just mean, like, in terms of being finished at the point of release, that one was finished at the point of release, which is a rarity. Rare treat these days. Chronic 343 were the wrong studio for Halo. Who was the right studio for Halo? Or who would be the right studio for Halo right now? Oh, I know. This is like, we're going to get back to Phil Spencer, but question, because we were just talking about Halo, and obviously they got their slip space engine. I was talking earlier about Cyberpunk and their red engine that they've got rid of. I had a little conversation on Twitter today about like bespoke engines that studios use that do cool things. What games and studios have engines, if you follow these things closely and you're aware of what kind of engines games are delivered on, which ones are awesome? Which studios have like engines with nice characteristics that you are a fan of, but you don't want to see migrate over to Unreal Engine 5? Because I look at CD Projekt Red had massive trouble with the Red engine, and it was like probably largely responsible for the state that Cyberpunk launched in. So I totally understand the move away. But then I see their path tracing being 800 years ahead of the rest of the industry, and it's sad that they're moving away from that because they've got something unique and quite very impressive. The re-engine, I'm going to call it the Resident Evil engine. I don't care that Capcom say it's not called that. We all know that it is. Yeah, strong. What do you like about it, Dodge? What's its key characteristics? Performance, it's like a little bit of bounced ray tracing. Weird lighting that it has going on. Luke, still you love Decima and idTech. idTech's still... It's a funny one though. The thing with idTech is, yeah, it's an incredible engine, but ID always favoured Vulkan over DirectX. So they've managed to extract that performance on DirectX. Like if you play Doom Eternal on a Series X at like 60 frames per second with ray tracing, it's massively impressive. But yeah, you'd hope that Xbox are going to take advantage of that engine because it has delivered very impressively already before even having a proper next-gen game on it. Decima, obviously, like the Horizon games and Death Stranding, it's probably maybe the best open world engine around at the moment. Is that fair to say? Are there any other open world engines that are as good? I mean, obviously we were just talking about the Red engine from CD Projekt Red, but Decima's been focused on open worlds and done a very good job with it. Beta Cypher Resident Evil engine is fine. What is it about the Resident Evil engine? Reach for the Moon engine. I know the proper name for it, but I refuse it. Everybody knows it's actually Resident Evil. You can't put RE and then say it stands for Reach for the Moon. Fuck off, Capcom. We know it's the Resident Evil engine. Even when you use it for other games, you've put those games on the Resident Evil engine. You can't fool us. Does Techland not use their own engine with Dying Light? I think they do, actually, yeah. Northlight is Remedy's. Northlight, I really like Northlight. We were talking about, I can't remember who it was that shouted out Northlight on Twitter. Actually, it made me want to play Quantum Break. If it didn't have those TV series sections to walk through, then I would stream Quantum Break. They have, at the time that they released that on the Xbox One, their lighting engine was a little bit too ambitious for that console. The dynamic light that cast over as time moves around, but you play Control and like the level of physics that they delivered in there were really neat as well. So yes, I agree, Northlight is a cool engine. Don't want them to get rid of it. What engine does Gran Turismo use? I think that's their own bespoke. I don't know what engine it is. And I don't know what I think of it. Forza Tech, so Acid Flare, Forza Tech is like... Turn 10 are a wonderful studio. Typically. And if they were allowed to do virtual reality, I would love their games. But yes, Forza Tech is a prize that must not be squandered. So I often say Turn 10 on Microsoft's like incubator studio for all of their technologies. So Forza Tech is a racing engine, but it's not just a racing engine. It's the engine that they use to showcase and pioneer DirectX features. Or direct features, I should say. Remedy are doubling down on Northlight. Yes, good to see. And I should say I'm not like anti Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5 has some neat stuff about it as well. But it's cool when you get an engine that does something really weird and really impressive. I remember I played a little one. What was the game I played on Twitch that had the base building and things, like Rift Breaker? That had its own engine, and that was kind of impressive. In terms of like all the, I don't know, it's just a nice looking game for what it was actually, that was doing fairly unique things in terms of the way it was moving lots of enemies around. Bethesda's engine is bloody amazing at what it does, as in the Creation engine, the Skyrim Bethesda engine, or one of their other games. Epic better result, shader stutter. So Replicant, the question on that one is how much of that is Epic's fault? Because they're not the only ones suffering shader stutter. Like pretty much every game does, and I still question whether that's an underlying DirectX 12 feature that Epic might not actually be the ones to fix. It might be Microsoft that need to fix shader stutter. I hope not. Sobo has an interesting engine. You mean the one they use for Flight Sim? Beta Cypher, you like the Reach for the Moon Resident Evil engine because they can use it across these different genres and things like that. Yeah, which can be a blessing and a curse. Like one of the problems that EA had for a lot of years was the Frostbite engine was used too broadly. So it was a very, very good engine for Battlefield that it was made for, but they were also using it for racing games and all the rest of it, and it was causing some problems. They relaxed that stance and they probably relaxed it for the sake of Titanfall. They let Respawn use the Source engine which is another interesting one that doesn't get much attention because Valve don't do enough, but the Source engine is probably still very capable. Flight Sim and Plague's Tale. What engine was Plague's Tale on? It's not on the same one as Flight Sim, is it? Maybe it is. I don't know. Can't remember. Rift Breaker is on a solid engine. Yeah, and it's an engine pixel bit that's like really specific to that game. They said this is what we want to achieve with this game, and like the more public open engines aren't necessarily suitable, so let's do weird shit. Crytek, how can you talk engines and not talk about Crytek? Oh, it's because they're not there anymore, really. But back in the day, that was an interesting engine too. Oh, Rise, Son of Rome. Forza Tech is an awesome engine. You worry about it being used for more than driving, though. Yeah, there were lots and lots of rumours that Playground was struggling with using that engine for Fable, because it is a racing engine, but we shall see. We shall see how that develops. Yeah, you're talking about the creation engine from Bethesda. For interacting systems, you don't think that there's any better. Are there any others that have like tried to achieve similar? Creation engine, like Creation Engine 2, so the one that they're using for Starfield, was actually, I think the visual impact of it has been underappreciated by people that were looking at it. The first trailer that they showed when they announced its release date, that's been and gone ages ago, was too pretty. Like, it won't look like that on Xbox. It was very, very impressive. So they've obviously rewritten a lot of it in terms of the like visuals and all the rest of it. But how they've done, like, what's going to change in terms of the systems? And you're right, like Bethesda's games, systems on systems on systems is what makes them fun. It's what makes the gameplay emergent and interesting, and what lets you just utterly dick around and be chaotic. So yeah, it is a good engine. Again, engine built for specific purpose and specific type of game. Okay, that was it. Thank you for offering up so many examples. What about Amazon's Lumberyard? Star Citizen is using it. So Amazon's Lumberyard is, or was, Crytek's engine. So they bought a branch, or they bought a license to branch off Crytek's engine back when Crytek's engine was good. And I'd be surprised if it's not an unwieldy mess at the moment. It can still pull out some good visuals, but I don't know what Amazon have done to it. It's just a weird scenario to buy use of someone else's engine and then develop on top of it. Branch it off in their own direction. New World is on Lumberyard, I think, yes. I'm not sure if anything else is released on it. But you hope that Street Fighter looks great, but it's the gameplay that you want with Street Fighter. The Street Fighter demo didn't look great to me. It looked kind of shite, actually. But gameplay was on point and working. I was happy enough with that. Starfield. We were talking about the Reach for the Moon engine as well, Peter. You got to be clear with your, you know, games and tits. No, don't be sorry. It's absolutely fine. Obviously, what I want from Starfield is virtual reality support. You read it as Starfield. Don't need you ganging up on me. It's fine. You can read it as Starfield. I can also read it as Starfield. What else? Let's get back to Phil Spencer, eh? Let's get back to that. Does anyone think there's merit to what he said about... In fact, open discussion. You tell me what you think. So Phil Spencer said that he doesn't think releasing good games is gonna rescue Xbox's console market share. That releasing good games isn't going to get people over to Xbox, or at least not over to the console. Let's start with that. What do we think? I'll tell you while you're typing, and I'm sure you're all typing right now exactly what you think of it, but I'm going to point out the obvious, that Xbox can gain market share without people selling their PlayStation 5s. Like, if people buy an Xbox to play Xbox games, then Xbox are gaining in market share. So I agree with him that, like, Starfield can be as good as you like, and not many people are going to sell their PlayStation to get it. But that's not the same as not increasing market share. So it was a strange take, that one. Like, so you're saying you think he's right, and I'm going to ask you to elaborate, like, what element of what he said you think is right. Because he made it sound kind of hopeless, like no amount of good games is going to help the Xbox console. Patrick, you think it will close the gap to an extent, but you don't see Xbox becoming the console market leader. No, it would take a lot to become the console market leader. He's probably correct. The media is so biased and PlayStation has the mind share. Don't know how much power the media has over such things at the moment, but Gears of War with Halo Edition. And the other thing, so JJ, they need a handful of big IP games to hit, and they're exclusive or Wolverine Spider-Man equivalents. Well, they also need to market a hell of a lot more. So a lot to casuals, it's all that they see. That's different media. Casuals don't see like IGN's reviews and stuff like that necessarily. That's quite a core group. But wasn't it in context that they wouldn't sell the games? You think that he and Xbox would have to do a lot of work and money and stuff, which they don't want to do. I've found it a slightly odd thing to say, because they definitely can't hurt their situation in the console space by releasing games. And I agree that they're not likely to dethrone PlayStation and Nintendo anytime soon. But I wouldn't say that's an impossible task forever. What he said was people are entrenched in their platforms. He said, like, with kind of bitter undertones, that Xbox lost the most important generation in the Xbox One generation, because that's where people built their digital libraries. What do we think of that? Is there truth to that? Is it impossible to recover because people have lots of games, like PlayStation 4 games? I'm gonna momentarily sip on some wine and see what your answers are. He always, so Painful Discourse, he always did think that the games aren't enough, but he actually said he doesn't think they will get into first place, not that they won't grow. He said that it won't get them console market share, I think, unless I'm misremembering. Digital has also hurt Xbox as more. By Xbox Digital, casuals and parents only see Nintendo and PlayStation in store. Well, yeah, the storefront side of digital is a different thing. Read your comment above. One moment, Tom. I'm getting there. Scroll. Tom, it's ages away. In a digital age coming off of PlayStation 4, most will buy the PlayStation first as they have games and trophies stuck on that. So trophies I agree with. It's what the regulators call network effects, and they're a real thing, right? Like if you've got a really good gamer score or trophy score, whatever they call it, or if you've got a group of friends that are playing on a particular platform, these are the network effects that keep people on a platform, and that's real and absolutely will keep people. And also just like goodwill and trust. If you've enjoyed a console, then you're likely to stick with that brand for a while. These are all like real things. What I don't quite get is the like the consideration that the Xbox One generation is the most important because that's where digital libraries were formed. Because I would have said that most of these network effects were actually things like achievements and friends lists and things. These were network effects pioneered by Microsoft on the Xbox 360 generation. And I don't think it's not that Phil Spencer is wrong to bemoan losing that generation. It is very, very difficult to recover from those losses. I don't see the Xbox One generation being more important than any other in that regard, apart from the fact that they lost it. Like that's where they fucked up, and it's very hard to recover. But I don't think everyone's buying a PlayStation 5 because they've got PlayStation 4 games specifically, like because that's where their digital library is. Which is a subtle differentiation and not an important differentiation, to be honest, because the network effects are definitely there and definitely real. So I understand him like begrudging that the Xbox One squandered their audience and it is very difficult to claw back. Pioneered, yes, but Xbox One gen is where those things took off across the board. Yeah, but that means that there were 80 million people that already had a gamer score. So Microsoft had that in the bag, more so than Sony. So yes, it was the Xbox One generation that squandered that lead and blew it. But I don't think that the move to digital libraries is like a key part of that story, if that makes sense. I don't know. A lot of people still bought discs in the Xbox One and PS4 generation as well, so. Why does it matter if someone plays Starfield or console, PC or cloud? No, Replicant, I agree with them. I agree with Microsoft's strategy in most regards, in that console hardware isn't super important. I don't blame them for not massively caring about it. Like I said, console is a valid on-ramp. There's an audience for it. And I think they should keep making consoles because the people that like to play on console can then play on console. That's pretty simple. There's no detriment to it, and there's no, like, the general strategy of expanding the ecosystem out to other devices makes all of the sense, and I'm happy for them to do that. I'm also happy for PlayStation not to do that, or anybody else not to do that. Like, these things can all work, and there are pros and cons to everything. Of course there are, but Kratos, for you, the 360 days were Xbox's best. After that, it's like Wii U and Wii U 2. So the 360's first 2 or 3 years were very strong. And 360 as a console was very strong, like pioneering those network effects that should have set Microsoft for the rest of their gaming days. Sauron Grant, you think the Xbox will make great games if they release good games? How can they not? Like, how can they not? People want to play great games. So, Tom, you'd agree that those network effects are most important, but this gen is the first for PlayStation backward compatible to all of your PlayStation 4 games. Kind of, in that the PlayStation 3 was a sticking point for back compat, but the PlayStation 3 was back compat with all of your PlayStation 2 games when it launched. I don't think, like, I like back compat, and then obviously Xbox's program for it is very strong, and I can very reliably go onto an Xbox Series console and pick up a game from any generation and be confident that it's going to play a good version of it, apart from Tekken 7. But every other game, I say apart from Tekken 7, there's a little window between 2013 and 2015, 2016-ish where they're a little bit shaky. But by and large, Xbox is back compat. You can go on there, reliably buy a game, play it, and have like the best version of it. PlayStation aren't as strong in that, but they do support back compat. But in terms of the importance of it, I don't think that PlayStation is beating Xbox because people are trying to play their PlayStation 4 games on a PlayStation 5. Congratulations on the new job. I hope it gets you everything you want and is fun at the same time. That's cool. I like good news. Well done. Chronic, got to deliver on big games and build up the trust that they've lost, and it will take time due to how many missteps they've made. It will, but it will happen. They've got so many studios, and Phil, despite being massively negative in the interview, said that he can see the pieces falling into place. Like, they are getting to a point where they hit his quarterly releases. He even seemed to have doubts on that, but because his own confidence has been massively rocked, I guess. Bloodborne still 30 frames per second on PlayStation 5 is a travesty. Bloodborne, they lost the password, they can't update it. No PC version, no PlayStation 5 version, no PlayStation 4 Pro version until Bluepoint remake it one day from scratch with no source code to work off of. Tony, Jimmy Boy really wants to bring Phil down with him. That's what you're seeing. Jimmy Boy's not going down anywhere. What you mean? What? You mean Jim Ryan? I would imagine Sony love him at the moment. Painful Discourse, that is not true. What's not true? That they lost the password? I hope that's not true. You found long socks. What have we talked about today and what haven't we talked about today? Let's have... You like Jim Ryan? I don't dislike Jim Ryan. I don't... Like, he's obviously keeping to himself far more so than than the Xbox people do. And that's just like, ultimately, like Phil Spencer said, how they handle themselves in front of social media and all the rest of it is a distant second to what they actually deliver. How games are marketed is a distant second to how fun they are to play. And in terms of like what they're delivering, PlayStation have obviously delivered a lot, and they've obviously also raised the price of games to a horrible level and all these things as well. So I don't know, like, because Sony are so secretive and behind closed doors, it's hard to attribute who's responsible for what, who's making what decisions and all the rest of it. But obviously PlayStation has virtual reality, so they're all good in my books at the moment. Lance McDonald did patch Bloodborne to run at 60 frames per second. You can do it on a PlayStation 5 Pro or a dev kit PlayStation 5. Yeah, that's true, Painful Discourse. There is a crack there that lets you play a dodgy version of it, but Sony can't do it for whatever reason. From frontline support to coordinating and data analyzing. Question is, Tom, when you get your bumpy pay rise, big jump in your salary, what treat are you going to buy for yourself? You can be drunk right now, that's the immediate celebration, but you got to set your eyes on a fun prize. What are you going to treat yourself with? Replicant, you're liking better when Factions 2 ships. Maybe. I've got no strong love for the first faction, so it doesn't mean all that much to me. Jim certainly wouldn't have given that interview, good or bad. Well, Peter, I would say neither. Like, I get that it's nice to hear from an exec and feel like you know their intentions for the brand and things like that, or whatever else. But it's also so insignificant in the grand scheme of whether a console is good or bad. Treat me to dinner and you need a personal tour of the VR dungeon. Very nice, very nice. Like, Phil is very, very good at talking to the public, and it works. And like I've said several times already, he carried a lot of Xbox positivity on his shoulders. And it's not just the PR, like he's made a lot of good decisions that are consumer friendly in terms of Xbox's strategy, and deserves a lot of credit for that. Jim Ryan speaks to nobody, doesn't, like, there's that famous picture of him holding a controller all claw hand and not really looking like he's ever played a game in his life. But is that important ultimately? Like, no. If Phil went back, if he had a choice, if he said, oh, if I'd not heard from Phil for the last like 9 years, but rather Xbox had released like 10 really good games, you'd swap in an instant, I would think. So Sony would see it as losing face. They wouldn't allow an interview like that for sure. But that's the other thing, is like, there's obviously risk associated with an interview like that, of people running with whatever narrative they want from whatever you say. But I don't know, it's just very secondary. I don't particularly like, and never have particularly liked, social media brand accounts being all chummy and personal. And that's something like Xbox are much better at than PlayStation, but I don't really see that as a positive particularly. So, Tom, you're moving house in 2 weeks. There's some nice furniture and a good barbecue with mates. A fine choice. Can I also recommend a virtual reality treadmill as that furniture? It's just so odd. Tony sounding pervy is odd. Yeah, that's Tony. Laughing at Phil said he's paid too much. You used to say that when you were an office worker being paid more than the people who were doing the work. It's a fair acknowledgement, but strange to hear, because I've always said that Phil Spencer's had a silver tongue, and everything he has said has been the right thing to say to every audience since the dawn of time, or since him taking over Xbox. He's always had the right things to say to the right people, and the only place where he came unstark was that he couldn't see the future. So some of the things that he said were used against him during various regulatory things that we shall not speak of. But in terms of like in the present moment, he's always said the right thing to the right people and covered himself very well. And today's like, it was a strange one because it was, yeah, he was frustrated, but it was also vetted and considered, the things that he was saying. So very curious what's happening there. I'm very curious what games are coming next. What do we think though? People here, are you like between the executives? Actually, not a vote between them because that's like kind of childish and petty. But are you happy with both of them? Are you happy with Phil Spencer? Do you think he's doing a good job? Do you want him to stay at Xbox? Same question for Jim Ryan. Not pitting them head to head because that's a bit console war. It's not a who's doing better between them, but just are you happy with what they're doing with their respective brands, or would you rather they step aside and let some new blood in? Can, but you need a VR headset first. Everybody needs VR headsets. That would go with your sim rig brilliantly. Tom, if you've got... It's a question that I ask myself sometimes, actually. If you've got a sim rig and you're used to a good... Like, you've got a steering wheel set up for your racing games, I wonder which is the more important accessory, a VR headset or a steering wheel. Because a steering wheel obviously makes a massive difference to a racing game. A VR headset makes a massive difference to a racing game, but does it make more of a difference than a steering wheel? That's a hard argument. Much as I love VR and I want everyone to like to need it and make it popular, and I'm not a shill, but much as I love VR, a steering wheel probably does need to come first if you're looking at racing games. Then though, the fact that it's a decision to be weighed up should tell you how much you need virtual reality for your sim rig. Do it. Sauron Grant, yes to Phil, yes to Jim. They both had different strategies. They're both fine, says Patrick. Big Mad Mo, in your eyes, Phil saved Xbox. That's fair. Replicant, difficult to say really. Both had pros and cons, good and bad decisions. Yeah. Patrick, you'll be curious to see if anyone is calling for Jim's job when it closes on a year between first-party games. Yep. Good question. Although, I guess there's plenty of notice, like people could start moaning now if they wanted to. Sony, by the way, I know they've got limited games this year, but they've always been quite happy to talk about things in advance, so their showcase will probably be good as well, I would think. Even if the games that they mention are a little ways out. Big Bad Mo, Jim Ryan is making plenty of money, so they should both stay. Kratos, can we sacrifice the Xbox employees for their failure? Sacrificing might be a bit dramatic. But yes, why not? Why not? Blood for games. If it works like that, we'll do it. If it doesn't work like that, we'll find out the hard way. Peter Morland, you would like Phil to stay, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't need to make changes. Sadly, you think he might step down. Do you know? I mean, he has been in it for a long time now, and his interview did magnet blame onto himself as much as he could. So, I like, speculation and predictions aren't really my bag. I did seem to be angling for it, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was on the cards. Replicant, no, yep, don't feel either needs to go. Sauron Grant, one is making money now, one has an eye on the future. Chronic UK, keep Phil and Jim, both are doing what's necessary now. Lower management, maybe a different question with Xbox. Yeah, like this is what I mean. Phil Spencer's magneting blame onto himself, but realistically, there's a lot of fingers to point at people working for him. So, Tom, you'd say wheel first, especially as your monitor is less than 2 feet from your face. Mistake. Not mistake in general. Like, wheel first is, I think, probably correct for racing games specifically, but monitor being 2 feet from your face is not equivalent to VR or close. You'll see. You'll see. Makes all the difference being able to go and still see the game. Doesn't matter how close the monitor is. Big Bad Mo. You think he's pissed? Wait a minute, who's pissed? Tom? Or me? Or everyone? Who cares? I mean, yes. Oh, you think Phil Spencer is pissed at people letting him down? Maybe so. So everybody wants to keep everybody. We're going to sacrifice some Xbox fans. Oh, I could name some. There are some Xbox fans that I'd be happy to, like, yeah, blood for games. Let's do it. Patrick, every person, every job fails sometimes. It's not hard to remember. People make games and people are not perfect, no matter what platform they make games for. Don't know, it's a bit soft, Patrick. Blood sacrifices are the way. Cult of the Xbox employees. Phil said he knew the frame rate would be a problem. Yes, Peter, he did. He did say that. He did say some things around Redfall that were a bit questionable. Again, trying to admonish all blame from Arcane Austin, while also making it fairly evident that there was blame to be passed if they wanted to. It was a weird one. Soundground wrong context again. Tom's drunk. Big Mad Mo says that Phil is drunk. Peter Morland, Phil, yeah, we've done that one already. Right, let's do these questions, shall we? Let's crack through them, because apparently it's been 2 hours already. I think probably this isn't the last Q&A ever. Because it was a nice time, right? Everybody's enjoyed good conversations. I don't know if I've said anything worth saying, but I'm sure some of you have, so the time is well spent. Isla, if you are available, please present the question number 1. 32 watching. I very deliberately don't see these numbers for myself. It's not a problem that you tell me that. All right, welcome 32 people that are watching right now. Please hit the like button and make a fake account so we can double that number up to 64. Thank you. Don't do the fake account thing. More is good. Okay, deal. Painful discourse. One problem with Xbox people do not understand that it's part of Microsoft. Structural change in a corporation of that size takes ages. Yes, painful discourse. I've seen large organizations make structural changes. I've seen large scale acquisitions. You're not wrong. These things do take ages. You're also not wrong when you say that Xbox is part of Microsoft, and I'm still going to remain suspicious of Microsoft. This is why I refer to Phil as like a bulwark against the tide of nastiness that is that company. And that's like Microsoft do some good things in other areas as well, but they are very much beholden to shareholders, and money is everything. Last what? Last Q&A, sir. It's not the last Q&A, sir. The best news show. I'm not sure I'd call it a news show, but conversational show, right? I don't break news. We just talk about stuff. It's nice. And I spend freaking ages doing these nice backgrounds and OSTs and stuff. What do I mean by last? Don't panic. New Joe. No, Peter. Panic more. There's a question. The question has been presented. Sager P, I'm not sure if you're still here anymore. I apologize if you're not, but this is how we do these questions, so I hope you do catch it. What's your overall takeaway from Phil's interview today? Very sad, wasn't it? We've talked about it enough that I think you've probably gleaned my overall takeaway. Still like him as head of Xbox. Still grateful that he keeps them more honest than a company should be in lots of regards. Like, lots of people have said that if he played the game a bit more nasty, if he did the money hatting and he fought like tit for tat with Sony in the way that they strategize, maybe Xbox would be in a good place right now. Personally, I still like the fact that he doesn't do that. I like the fact that he's focused on things like back and pat that don't really make money. Bringing games to more people, that's cool. But I'll never forgive him for not supporting virtual reality. So Phil can be on the pile to be sacrificed until I get Forza Horizon 5 in virtual reality. That's my answer to that one. Next question, please. Boobram. Kratos, Game Daily with me. Where's Gaz? He was sacrificed for the greater good. Gaz will be there on Saturday. He's still alive and well, as far as I'm aware. Alive and well and busy, and like deeply hurt by the fact that Redfall didn't review as highly as he needed for his console wars. And then Microsoft is part of Washington, D.C. Ooh. Right, next question. Have I got TED dashboard? Wayne, I've not checked. Should we check right now? We're going to find out if we have TED dashboard. By the way, what button is it? Is it this button? Is it this button? Is it this button? Let's see if this works. That's me. We have the old dashboard. But apparently I'm not connected to the Xbox network. No, we're not doing that. We'll end up sharing passwords. So I have the old dashboard, but apparently my Xbox is disconnected right now. So we will connect it up and find out another day if I get the update or not. I am on the insider ring, so it should be there. Won't let you select Tony's question because it has a naughty word. Please repeat Tony's question into the comments. Naughty word included. And you meant high production quality Q&A show which happens to talk about news sometimes. In that case, Tom, I must ask, which one is better? Because that narrows the selection massively. High production quality Q&A show. It's not even the best one of those. Who's doing this better? I will go and copy their homework. Tony's question was, I need Game On Dailies to sponsor me in my journey to Overwatch 2 tournaments. Tony, when I say sponsored by Game On Daily, I hope you're aware that I'm not getting any money for it. If you're happy with those terms, then by all means, sponsorship deal set. Only on alpha, skip ahead in alpha. I can't remember which ring of the insider stuff that I'm in on the Xbox, but I was definitely signed up to something. Right, Replicant asked, related to the Phil Spencer discussion, if not discussed earlier, could you see Xbox going third party? You could argue more money to be made, especially with a mobile shop. Third party carries a weird technical definition that might cloud that a little bit. I can see them being willing to bring games everywhere, which kind of would make them third party, I guess, but they already bring games to Steam, so you could argue they're already third party, and obviously certain games they bring to other platforms. I don't see them dropping their focus on Game Pass, if that makes sense. So that's not really the same as going, like, by some definition, you could say that they're third party already. By some definition, you could say, no, they're always going to be doing Game Pass stuff. I don't think that Microsoft at board level give a shit about consoles in the slightest. Which isn't to say that they're not going to carry on making consoles, because like I say, consoles are an obvious on-ramp into the ecosystem that they do care about. They support it in that sense. I think if Game Pass as a project were to fail, then Xbox wouldn't exist anymore, or would be spun off to fend for itself, and then probably shortly after not exist anymore. Which is not a thing that I think is going to happen, at least not in the near future. Like, that makes sense, right? I'm not saying that. That's definitely not a prediction. I'm not saying Game Pass is going to fail and Xbox are going to close. I'm saying, hypothetically, if Game Pass were to fail, then I think Xbox would be gone. Because that is the play that Microsoft are in it for. And again, there's some nuance around that, because maybe Game Pass could fail, but they could pivot and keep that strategy alive through a different naming convention. But by and large, no, they're in it for the big picture, not for the console. And that's why we need someone like Phil to act as a bulwark to keep some focus on us nerds. To hold the core, like, nerdy gamer, the controller gamer, the main, not You know, mainstream and core and casual are like weird terms that I don't like to use, but you know what I'm getting at. Someone to hold us in reverence and deliver quality games that we enjoy, rather than chasing the broader audience and bigger paychecks. Tom, it's the only one of these. It's the only one of these, and I said, oh, but people are scared to take me on. I'm not sure that there are many people that are even aware that I'm here to know to take me on. There's nobody copying my homework because we have a select elite crew here. And actually, now that you mention it, people that are here, if there is anybody here that I don't follow on Twitter or Game On Daily or anywhere else where we should be interacting more, promise it's not on purpose. My Twitter feed is filled with some utter dickheads, but all the people here I would be very happy to converse with. So if I'm not following you on Twitter or anything like that, don't feel like you're not like someone I want to talk to. Get my attention and I'll follow you and we'll have chats, because that's the best thing about that platform. I'd much rather talk to all of you lot than to anyone that's not here, to be honest. So point it out to me if I'm not following you there. And anyone here that does any kind of content creation side of things, make sure that you feel free to talk to this community and let them know what you're doing. I know Ashes to Ashes does some streaming. I'm not sure anybody else that's here does. Connor does when he's around, so General C pops in from time to time. He likes to stream, but make sure everyone knows what we're up to and what we're doing, because it would be good to be able to support you as much as you support me in some way, if that makes sense. If I get too big, it's harder for you to be heard. Stay small. I need to pay back my stuff, you know. You made a video once. Yes, Isla, I offer you my full support. Right. Next question, please. Next week, you're giving your daughter NyQuil during that time, so you can come on the show again. Yeah! It's been a little while since anyone's put a foot into Discord, which is fine. Like, there's no pressure to do that, but it is cool when someone does. You want H videos. What does that mean? I don't know if it counts because I don't know what it means. Did I answer replicants? Yep. Mushrooms. Mushrooms. You watch videos, does that count? That makes you very valuable here, as it were. You know, you're kidding sort of. Cool. What's next? What wine am I drinking tonight? Grape and brand, please. Peter Morland. Without having the bottle handy, I can't possibly answer for you. It is red and very sweet. It's like on the scale of like dry wine to sweet wine, this one is like over here in Ribena land. It is wine, but it's very sweet. Am I gonna go onto Blue Sky when it's public? What's Blue Sky? Tis a dessert wine. Maybe so. Like Mastodon. Oh, I've seen. Okay, yeah, I've seen some people put their Blue Sky social media links on there. I have no plans to explore any others at the moment. I'm not massively enamored with Twitter. Twitter is like a tool in general that I need to use for the sake of growing Game On Daily and my little channel here. But a new Twitter made by Jack, who made the original Twitter. Oh, I didn't know it was made by that guy. No, one day, if we have our way, Twitter will be completely replaced by Game On Daily. So red is the only wine, white bums. I'm not a fan of white wine. So Twitter too. Yeah, no, gonna replace all of the social medias. That is the long-term plan, if we eventually get there. Next question, please. Twitter is horrendous. Yes, for Many reasons. Red wine is for girls. Who are you quoting? That's definitely quotation marks. And yeah, red wine is for grown-ups and white wine is for children's. I don't remember. No, I don't remember. Next question is, Salmon Grunt asks, do you think Gaz should set fire to Colt when he takes over from Phil? No, I actually have some sympathy for Colt over the whole Redfall thing. Colt invites a lot of problems onto himself. He spent like 2 weeks trying to wind people up over Redfall's exclusivity, and it bit him in the ass, and he felt bad about it. But I have some sympathy for him. A lot of people got on his case, and a lot of people really got on his case in terms of like quite aggressive DMs and things like that, because he went to the Redfall special event, got flown out there, got treated nicely, and then said nice things about Redfall. In the way, like, you know my stance on shilling in general, I'm not a massive fan of it, but I have some sympathy for Colt in a big way, because he played Redfall for like an hour and a half on a PC and came away thinking that there might be a good game there. I played Redfall for an hour or two on PC and I kind of enjoyed it. So it's very difficult for someone in his situation to walk into that environment, play a game like that, assess it, and come away thinking or recognizing that it's going to launch badly, because it's not that obvious. Yeah, he played a vertical slice, he played a little mission. I mean, even if I were there and I were playing and I was like, oh, this AI is a bit easy, I think it would be not a huge stretch to think that they'd just put the game onto journalist mode and that it wouldn't be like that when it launched. Like, you know, journalist mode, because they would IGN it. So I have some sympathy for him over that. At the same time, he did invite criticism because he tried to leverage Redfall in a console war way, so a bit him on the ass, but he got more abuse than he deserved. It's not his fault. It's not his fault that it turned out the way he did and that he didn't recognize it. When you deceived people for their hard-earned money by lying about a game, better be ready for what karma brings. That's the thing, like Kratos. I don't think he did lie. He definitely used it as ammo in a fight that he shouldn't be fighting. But I have some sympathy. And he got more abuse than warranted. Every person who went to that event has said that they played is not what shipped. Well, I mean, it is. They just played the PC version, right? They didn't take anything out of the game and make it worse since that point in time. But you can see, like I said, I played an hour or two of the game and didn't hate it. Needs to get out of the Xbox saying it's like, I don't like Colt's friend. I don't want to speak negatively of him. Pretty much every time he tries the console war, it backfires and bites him in the ass. He's like the Michael Pachter of Xbox fans. So, for his own good, sometimes he should not say things. If you know the game is garbage, and say otherwise. But yes, we didn't know the whole story with Colt and others yet. He asked about the console version. And you know what I will say though, on the Redfall thing, there's a broad narrative across like gaming journalism that the big publications, that your IGNs and anyone like from that point and a fair amount smaller, that those publications can't be trusted because they need to maintain their relationships with publishers and all the rest of it. And there's a running theory that YouTubers and independent channels are inherently the ones to trust. And that is something I would challenge to a degree. YouTubers and smaller websites, and I'm not saying this like broad strokes covering all of them, but YouTubers, small channels and things like that are just cheaper to buy. Like, they can be influenced and swayed at least as hard as the big publications. So the key is to like really pick individual ones that you trust and follow them, but don't assume that everyone small is inherently better than everyone big, because it's not what I've witnessed. And that's definitely not about Colt. Don't like feed that back as a thing that I'm saying about him specifically, but typically, by and large, don't assume that YouTubers are more trustworthy than big publications. Everyone can be bought quite easily. Apart from like me, I'm a beacon of integrity, and the likes of ACG. I don't know Skill Up, but a lot of people put Skill Up forwards as someone that's like trustworthy. Detective Seed seems to be a good guy. There are people out there that you can trust, but don't base it on size or type of channel. Shills be shilling everywhere, big and small. That's the key. Individuals can be trusted, big corps can't, but that's the line you have to be careful of, Acid Flare, because being an individual is not the thing that makes someone trustworthy. It might mean that there's that potential there. Like, that's an individual, they might be a good person, but don't assume they all are just because they're small. A lot of small channels and YouTubers are very easily bought for a much lower price than a big website. Colt is a nice guy, makes some missteps, but like I say, he's a friend, and I'm not saying that about him. That thing about influencers was, I would definitely steer clear of naming names because it's not very fair, but flattery can be a marketing tool to get those on board. Yeah. Tony, stop yelling your innuendos. Good for you. Is that it for questions? Are we all done here? I think so. So, Tom, exactly. Individuals can be paid off for much less money. Most individuals do accept that payoff. And in some cases, yeah, like, it was Colt's first exhibition like that, so. And again, I really don't want to conflate the two. Those are separate topics. When I talk about people being bought off and all the rest of it, I'm not talking about Colt, so please don't run that narrative. So, end of today's Q&A, sir. It's the 44th episode. Will there be a 45th episode? Yeah, I'd say there's going to be a 45th episode. Thank you everyone for coming along and checking this out. We get very few questions in the comments, but it is an opportunity. If you're watching after the fact and you want your question answered next time, stick it in the comments and we'll remember. And if I don't remember, Isla's right there and she'll remember. She'll remind me, so it will happen. Painful Discourse, Skill Up, while true to himself, is very biased and can be very tough on stuff that's not for him. Maybe so. Like I say, I've not followed Skill Up stuff, so I don't know. It's just a name that I see put forwards a lot. He was naive, but you doubt he will be again. Yes, I think Colt's learnt some lessons in terms of that kind of thing. For the 69th episode, you require something special. Tony, getting way ahead of things. We'll see. All he said was he had a good time, and so did many of us. I've not got that as my outro line yet, Patrick, but yeah, if you're watching after, leave comments, hit the like button. There will be another live one next week, and we'll see how we go from there. In the week, we're going to have more streaming. I'm doing crazy things to my streaming setup. I can't, Isla, I've got really tired and I can't remember the 17 arseholes thing. There was a reason that was the closing statement last week, but I can't remember how it goes or what the context was. So if you understand it, if you are one of the 17 arseholes, you're doing better than me. And I will see you all in the near future on Go Live, on this channel, wherever it may be. Thank you very much. No outro still. I'll work on it. I'll think about it.